The cargo station hung like a metal spider in orbit above a nameless mining world. Ships came and went at all hours, loading raw ore, unloading supplies, and carrying travelers of every kind. For most people, it was just another stop in the endless chain of trade across the stars. For Ethan, it was home, at least for now. Ethan worked as a mechanic in Bay 14, where battered freighters and shuttlecraft lined up every day for repairs. The work was long, dirty, and filled with strange requests, but he didn't mind. Humans were still new to the galaxy compared to the old species, and mechanics like him were welcome. Humans were known for fixing things others would throw away. The station had been crowded for weeks, and space was scarce. When his supervisor told him that his quarters would now be shared, Ethan didn't argue. He was tired of bunking in temporary housing, and anything with a real door felt like a luxury. That was how he met his new roommate. Her name was Lyra. At first glance, she was unlike anyone Ethan had ever seen. She belonged to a reclusive aquatic species from the outer rim, a people who rarely left their ocean-covered worlds. Her skin looked pale and faintly iridescent, like seashells under sunlight. She wore heavy layered robes that covered nearly all of her body, even her hands. A hood often hid most of her face, leaving only sharp, observant eyes visible. When she moved in, she carried little with her: a sealed trunk, a pack of nutrient packs, and a set of tools Ethan didn't recognize. She nodded politely when introduced, but said little else. "Looks like we're roommates," Ethan said with an easy grin as he shifted his own duffel bag to the side of the room. "I'll try not to snore too much." Lyra tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "I do not mind. I am quiet." Her voice was low, almost musical but distant, and with that, she turned to her side of the quarters and began arranging her belongings in neat, precise order. The first week passed in silence. Lyra kept to herself, often slipping out before dawn and returning late at night. When Ethan tried to make small talk, she answered politely but briefly. She ate alone, often consuming liquid rations that smelled faintly of salt and minerals. At first, Ethan thought she disliked him, but as days went on, he realized it wasn't dislike, it was caution. Lyra was careful with every word, every glance, as if afraid to let anything slip. Ethan wasn't one to pry. Still, he couldn't help but notice the strange things about her. She always kept the bathroom door sealed, and he sometimes heard the faint rush of water long after the ration showers should have run dry. Once, when he returned unexpectedly, he caught a glimpse of her hand uncovered. For a moment, he thought he saw faint glowing lines beneath the skin, like liquid light, before she quickly pulled her sleeve back down. The station's gossip didn't help. Other workers whispered about Lyra's people, calling them secretive, strange, or even dangerous. Rumors said they could breathe both water and air, that their true bodies were hidden, and that they never revealed themselves to outsiders. Ethan ignored most of it. He had heard plenty of alien rumors since arriving in space, but he filed the thought away. One evening, Ethan returned from a long shift, his uniform smudged with oil. The corridors were quiet, the hum of the station steady. When he entered the shared quarters, the room was empty. Lyra's cloak hung on the hook by the door. He paused. She never left her cloak behind. For a moment, he considered knocking on the washroom door to announce himself, but before he could, he heard something, soft humming. Not mechanical humming, but a voice. Lyra was singing. The sound was unlike any song he had ever heard, a melody that rippled like water flowing over stones. Ethan froze, listening. It was haunting, beautiful, and entirely unexpected. He smiled to himself and carefully moved to set down his tool bag, making as little noise as possible. The door to the washroom, however, was not fully closed. Steam drifted out in lazy curls, filling the room with a faint, salty scent. Ethan stopped in his tracks. He knew it wasn't right to look. He knew it wasn't his place. But curiosity tugged at him before he could turn away. He glanced through the narrow crack in the door, just for a heartbeat. What he saw didn't match the quiet, cloaked figure he had come to know. Inside, Lyra stood in the pool of steaming water. Her robes were gone, her true form revealed. Her skin was smooth and radiant, glowing faintly with patterns of light that pulsed like waves. Veins of bioluminescence traced across her body, shifting colors in rhythm with her heartbeat. From her head and shoulders extended delicate, flowing tendrils that shimmered like strands of liquid crystal, moving gently in the water around her. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. She wasn't plain, She wasn't strange. She was breathtaking, unlike any being he had ever seen. Lyra turned slightly, her glowing eyes half closed as she sang softly to herself, unaware of the gaze upon her. Ethan's heart pounded. He pulled back instantly, pressing himself against the wall. He hadn't meant to see. He hadn't wanted to intrude. But now the image was burned into his mind, impossible to forget. He stood there frozen, unsure what to do. Finally, he grabbed his bag, quietly backed out of the room, and left before she noticed. That night, Ethan lay awake in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. The hum of the station's engines filled the silence, but his thoughts were elsewhere. What was she hiding? Why did her people conceal their true forms? And why did he feel guilty? Not just for seeing her, but for realizing how much more there was to Lyra than he had ever imagined. He turned over, trying to sleep, but he couldn't shake the memory of the glowing patterns across her skin, or the song that still echoed faintly in his ears. One thing was certain: life with his alien roommate was far more complicated than he had expected. And it was only the beginning. The next morning, Ethan woke before the station's usual hum had settled into its rhythm. He rubbed his eyes, still thinking about the glowing patterns and soft song he had glimpsed the night before. He told himself it was an accident, a moment of curiosity he hadn't meant to satisfy. Still, the image lingered in his mind. Ethan hurried through his morning routine, slipping into his uniform and grabbing a quick nutrient bar from the kitchen. He avoided looking at the washroom door, pretending it wasn't there. Lyra's quiet presence hung over the quarters like a shadow, even though she had not spoken to him since the incident. He hoped the day would pass quickly. Work at Bay 14 had enough problems to keep him busy: malfunctioning oxygen regulators, worn fuel lines, and the usual collection of alien tech that humans were never meant to understand. He could focus there, he thought, and forget about Lyra's secret. But the universe had other plans. Hours later, Ethan returned to the quarters, tired from a long repair session. He carried a toolbox in one hand and a small bag of supplies in the other. The corridor was quiet, almost too quiet. He hummed a simple tune as he approached the room, thinking about a shower and some rest. The first sign that something was wrong was the door to the washroom. It was slightly open. Ethan's stomach tightened. That door should always be closed. Lyra was careful about it. The steam that drifted out in lazy curls suggested someone was inside. He froze. His mind raced. Was it rude to knock? Was it rude to wait? He didn't want to make her uncomfortable, but part of him couldn't resist curiosity. Before he could think better of it, his curiosity took over. He stepped closer and leaned slightly to peek through the crack, and there she was. Lyra was bathing, completely immersed in the pool of water, her robes nowhere in sight. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. She was beautiful in a way he had never imagined. Her skin shimmered like liquid crystal, faintly glowing in intricate patterns across her arms, shoulders, and neck. Tendrils of bioluminescent light flowed gently from her head and shoulders, curling in the water like living ribbons. He caught his breath. The patterns pulsed in rhythm with her movements, and the water reflected the soft colors across the walls of the washroom. It was mesmerizing and surreal. Ethan immediately realized the danger. This wasn't just private, it was sacred to her species. Their true forms were never meant to be seen by outsiders. He had seen her already, but this moment, unplanned and close, was different. Before he could turn away, Lyra shifted slightly. He froze. Her eyes were half closed, unaware of him. Ethan's first instinct was to back off. Slowly, carefully, he stepped backward, pressing himself against the wall. He didn't breathe, he didn't move. The minutes stretched. The soft hum of the station was the only sound besides the gentle ripple of water. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. Then a soft sigh came from Lyra. She turned, and for a brief instant, her eyes met his through the tiny crack. Her expression shifted instantly. Shock, anger, fear. Ethan's stomach dropped. "Oh no," he whispered under his breath. Lyra pulled the bath curtain close, wrapping herself quickly in a translucent layer of water-resistant silk. The glowing patterns along her skin dimmed in the shadow of the cloth, and she wrapped her tendrils carefully as if trying to hide them from view. "You saw me," she said, her voice trembling slightly but still calm, low and melodic. I didn't mean to," Ethan stammered, holding his hands up. "It was an accident. I swear I didn't look, I just—" His words faltered. How could he explain the human instinct to peek without sounding like a fool? Lyra's eyes narrowed and she took a step back, pressing the curtain tightly around her. My species does not allow outsiders to see us in this form. You have B. The day after the accident began with a silence heavier than any Ethan had ever known. The quarters felt different. Even the air seemed cautious, as if it were holding its breath. Lyra's side of the room remained untouched, perfectly organized as always, her robes folded neatly on the bed. She hadn't spoken to him since the incident, and Ethan wasn't sure what to say. He tried simple conversation over breakfast, keeping his voice light. Coffee is ready if you want some. Lyra glanced up, her glowing eyes sharp and cold. I do not wish to eat with you, she said softly. Then without another word, she left the room. Ethan sighed, swallowing hard. He had expected tension, but this felt like more than that. It was a wall. One he didn't know how to scale. For the next few days, Ethan focused on his work at the station. He repaired freighters, tested energy cores, and maintained machinery that most species considered alien and inscrutable. It kept his mind occupied, but he couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. He wondered if he had permanently damaged their relationship. He observed her from a distance. In the corridors, she moved with grace, her robes flowing, her tendrils tucked safely inside. She kept her distance from other residents as well, walking silently past chatter and laughter, avoiding eye contact. She was careful, as if every step was calculated. Ethan noticed something else. She seemed restless. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her robes, and sometimes her eyes scanned the room quickly, almost as if she were expecting someone to appear at any moment. He realized then that this wasn't just embarrassment. Lyra's species had rules, laws, or instincts that humans couldn't fully understand. Seeing her true form had broken more than just a casual boundary. It had invaded something sacred. Ethan tried to make amends. He cleaned the quarters thoroughly, leaving small notes of apology and respect. I am sorry, one read. I will not intrude again. Your privacy is my priority. Another note said, I promise to act with care. I respect you. Lyra did not respond. She didn't remove the notes, but she didn't react visibly either. Ethan could only hope they had been received, that they mattered in some small way. Despite her silence, he sensed a subtle shift. She no longer flinched when he moved past her. She no longer cast sharp, suspicious glances. There was a small space opening, a space he hoped he could grow into. The tension of their coexistence finally came to a head one evening. Ethan returned from Bay 14 exhausted and covered in grease, only to find Lyra waiting for him. She stood by the window of their quarters, staring out at the endless stars beyond the station. The soft glow of her skin showed beneath her robes, faint and quiet, as if she had dimmed it purposely. You need to understand something, human, she said, her voice calm but firm. What you saw was forbidden. My species does not reveal this form to outsiders. We hide ourselves to survive. Ethan nodded, his hands raised in surrender. I know, and I am sorry. I didn't mean to see you. I won't let it happen again. I promise. Lyra's gaze didn't waver. Intent matters little. The act itself changes trust. You must work to earn it back. Ethan swallowed, taking a slow breath. I will. I don't expect forgiveness right away. But I want to make it right. I want to prove you can trust me. Her eyes softened slightly, just a fraction, but her posture remained firm. Very well. Words are cheap. Actions will show me if you are worthy. The first test came sooner than he expected. The station's water system began malfunctioning, sending erratic readings to the control room. Humans and aquatic species alike depended on it. Without it, Lyra and others could not survive comfortably, and the station would quickly descend into chaos. Ethan immediately volunteered to help, and when he saw Lyra approaching, he hesitated. Could he ask her for help after the accident? Was it acceptable? Lyra did not answer verbally. She simply nodded, a small gesture that carried more meaning than 1,000 words. She led him to the water control system, her tendrils barely brushing against the panels as if sensing the flow of energy within the pipes. Ethan watched, fascinated. Her species had a natural connection to water, far beyond anything humans could manage. She guided him, pointing out pressure points, flow anomalies, and blockages he could never have detected alone. Together they worked in silence, their cooperation speaking louder than any conversation. Hours passed. Sweat dripped from Ethan's brow, his hands black with grease. Yet he kept pace with Lyra. Her eyes shone faintly in the dim light of the maintenance bay, and he realized something important. She trusted him enough to let him help. Finally, after painstaking adjustments and careful coordination, the water system stabilized. The readings returned to normal and water flowed evenly to all parts of the station. Ethan wiped his hands and looked at Lyra. "We did it," he said quietly. She nodded, her glow dimming slightly, but there was a hint of pride in her eyes. "You did not interfere recklessly, that is. Acceptable. It wasn't a full forgiveness, but it was progress." After that day, their relationship began to change. Ethan kept respecting her privacy, moving carefully around the quarters, and Lyra slowly began to interact more. She started speaking in short sentences, answering questions, and even offering him small insights into her species' technology and customs. Ethan discovered that her people were advanced in ways humans could barely comprehend. Their understanding of energy, fluid dynamics, and biomechanics was remarkable. Yet they lived quietly among other species, hiding these talents, wary of exploitation. It amazed Ethan, and he felt privileged to learn from her. But he also understood the burden of secrecy she carried. Even with progress, the shadow of the accident lingered. Ethan could see it in her eyes, the memory of exposure, the fear that humans might not understand or respect her. It reminded him that trust was fragile and respect must be constant. One night, as the station's lights dimmed for maintenance cycles, Ethan sat on his bunk quietly reading while Lyra prepared for her evening routine. She moved differently now, slightly more relaxed, though her robe still hid most of her form. "You've changed since the incident," she said softly. Ethan looked up. "I've learned from it. I don't want to make the same mistake twice. I want to be someone you can trust." She tilted her head, considering him. "Perhaps trust grows slowly, human, but I see effort, and that is notable." Ethan smiled faintly. "Thank you. That means a lot." There was a pause filled with the soft hum of the station. For the first time since the accident, Ethan felt a small spark of hope. Their relationship was not fixed, but it was no longer broken. They were starting to understand each other, and that understanding, fragile as it was, laid the groundwork for something greater. Friendship, maybe more, but built on respect, trust, and shared experiences rather than accidents. The human had seen the alien in a way few others had. But now, with care and patience, he hoped to see her for who she truly was, and perhaps allow her to see him as more than just a curious outsider. The station's quiet corridors suddenly hummed with urgency. A warning alarm echoed faintly through the metal halls, signaling a critical malfunction in the water distribution system. Ethan was at Bay 14 when the alert reached him. He froze for a moment, recognizing the potential danger. The station depended on water for life support, hygiene, and sustenance. But for Lyra and other aquatic species, water wasn't just a convenience, it was a necessity. Without proper water circulation, they could not survive comfortably, and panic could spread quickly. Ethan grabbed his toolkit and ran toward the quarters. As he approached, he saw Lyra already moving, her robes flowing lightly behind her. Her steps were purposeful yet careful, as if she were measuring every movement. "We need to fix this," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "If the system fails completely, many will suffer." Ethan nodded. "I'm with you. Just tell me what to do." Lyra paused for a moment, her glowing eyes studying him. Then she led him to the main water control hub, a room filled with pipes, glowing conduits, and machinery that hummed with energy. Ethan glanced around, noticing that the system's readings were erratic. Pressure surges, blockages, and energy fluctuations. "This is worse than I thought," he muttered, rolling up his sleeves. Lyra nodded. "Humans cannot detect these flows naturally. You must rely on me." Ethan hesitated. "I don't want to overstep. I know I've broken your trust before." Her gaze softened slightly. "Trust is earned, human. Show me you can act with care, and we may succeed together." Lyra approached the water conduits, placing her hands on the surface. Her tendrils, barely visible beneath her robes, extended lightly, touching the machinery in ways that seemed almost impossible. Ethan watched in awe as the glowing patterns along her skin shifted, rippling like waves across her body. Her presence seemed to guide the flow of water and energy simultaneously. "You feel it, don't you?" she said, almost to herself. "The currents, the pressure, the imbalance." Ethan shook his head. I can't feel it like you do. I can only read the gauges and the panels. That is why we must combine our skills, Lyra said. You manipulate the machinery. I sense the flow. Only together can we correct it. They worked side by side. Ethan tightened valves, adjusted conduits, and rerouted energy flows following Lyra's precise instructions. She moved gracefully, her tendrils guiding parts of the system that he couldn't reach. Every now and then she would hum softly, a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with the water's movement. The station had grown quieter in the days following the water system crisis. Life returned to its usual rhythm. Shuttles docked and departed, and the hum of machinery filled the air. Yet Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that tension still lingered, an invisible thread connecting him and Lyra, a thread pulled taut by the memory of the accident. He had grown accustomed to her presence. Lyra no longer avoided him entirely. She spoke in soft, careful tones and allowed him to assist with maintenance tasks. Their cooperation had become routine, almost comforting. But as the station rotated in its orbit, change came in the form of an unexpected alert. The communication console blared a warning. Unauthorized craft were detected approaching the station, moving at high speed. Their transponders were masked, a signature of smugglers or raiders. The station's automated defenses activated, but the ships were nimble, avoiding detection until they were close. Ethan's heart raced. He recognized the threat immediately. Smugglers often hunted rare species, capturing them for profit. Lyra's kind, with their unique biology and bioluminescent traits, would be a prime target. He ran to the quarters, hoping to warn her before it was too late. Lyra was already aware. Her glowing eyes scanned the corridor, and her tendrils moved almost instinctively, sensing disturbances in the station's energy. They are here, she said, her voice steady but filled with tension. Smugglers. They seek a rare specimen. I believe they know I am aboard this station. Ethan's stomach sank. We can't let them get to you. We need a plan. Lyra considered him carefully. You have learned restraint and observation. Perhaps you can act decisively in a way few others could. We may survive if we cooperate fully. Together they assessed the situation. The smugglers were small, fast ships, designed to evade patrols and grab high-value targets. Ethan suggested securing the quarters and reinforcing key doors while Lyra used her abilities to detect movement and anticipate their path. This is dangerous, Ethan said, but I won't let them take you. Lyra's eyes glimmered faintly. Then we must act. The first skirmish came hours later. The smugglers attempted to dock silently at a lower level of the station, hoping to avoid the main security hubs. Ethan and Lyra had anticipated their approach, and she guided him to a service hatch overlooking the docking bay. You manipulate the doors and energy panels, she instructed. I will sense their movements and warn you. Ethan nodded, adjusting his toolkit. Together they operated in perfect coordination. Lyra's glowing tendrils brushed the walls, sensing vibrations and energy pulses.
Ethan responded instantly, sealing hatches, rerouting power,
and creating obstacles in the smuggler's path. The first wave of intruders attempted to board through maintenance tubes, but they were stopped repeatedly by sudden energy locks and mechanical barriers. Ethan could hear their frustrated voices over the intercom. They didn't expect this, he whispered. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. They never anticipate what they cannot sense. The smugglers escalated quickly, sending a second, larger team through the cargo bay. Ethan and Lyra moved swiftly. She guided him to the control panels, showing him how to manipulate energy fields subtly, creating barriers that would stop intruders without causing harm. Keep calm, she said softly. Observe, adjust, react. We will not fight blindly. Ethan followed her lead, controlling mechanical doors, vents, and energy grids. Lyra's perception of the environment allowed them to anticipate each move. They funneled the smugglers into dead ends, forcing them into containment sections where the station's automated security systems could detain them safely. Despite the chaos, Ethan noticed something remarkable. Lyra's glow intensified as she focused, patterns moving along her skin like liquid waves. She seemed to draw strength from the situation, her calm presence guiding his own actions. The final confrontation came when the smugglers realized their efforts were failing. A small squad attempted a direct assault on the quarters. Ethan and Lyra had prepared for this. They had reinforced the doors and sealed windows. Lyra positioned herself near a control panel, using her energy perception to anticipate the intruders' attempts. "They are close," she said, her voice firm. "Prepare to act decisively." Ethan steadied himself. "I've got this." As the smugglers tried to force the door, Ethan activated the panel, creating a temporary energy field that blocked their entry. Lyra's glow intensified, her tendrils reacting to subtle energy shifts in the station. She guided him, adjusting the field to keep it stable while preventing any harm to the intruders. Within minutes, the station's security systems immobilized the remaining smugglers. Alarms blared and the intruders were contained, unable to move until authorities arrived. Ethan leaned back, exhausted but relieved. "We did it," he said. Lyra approached, her glowing eyes dimming to a soft, calm hue. "Yes, you acted with precision, patience, and care. You protected not only yourself but others as well. This proves trust can exist between human and alien." Ethan smiled faintly, wiping sweat from his brow. "I didn't do it alone. You guided me." She regarded him with a faint glow of pride. "Perhaps humans are capable of learning more than I expected." The aftermath was quiet but significant. The authorities secured the smugglers and their ships were towed away. The station resumed its normal activities, though whispers of the incident circulated quietly. No one discovered Lyra's true form, thanks to their careful planning. That evening, Ethan and Lyra returned to their quarters. The weight of the day hung over them, but there was also a sense of accomplishment. They had survived together, relying on mutual understanding and cooperation. "You were brave today," Lyra said softly, removing her hood briefly. Ethan caught a glimpse of her eyes glowing faintly, the patterns on her skin subdued but visible. "I had to protect you," he said simply. "I wouldn't forgive myself if something happened because of me." Her gaze softened. "Then perhaps trust has grown further. You are more than a human who observes. You are a human who acts responsibly. That is rare." Ethan felt a warm sense of pride. He had proven himself not through words but through action. The following days were calmer. Ethan and Lyra worked together in the quarters and throughout the station, repairing systems, assisting residents, and maintaining the delicate balance of station life. Their relationship had shifted from tense roommates to cautious allies. Lyra began to teach Ethan more about her species, how they sensed energy, moved through water, and maintained their bodies in different environments. Ethan absorbed it eagerly, fascinated by the intricate abilities and knowledge she possessed. In return, Ethan shared human techniques, practical engineering tips, and strategies that Lyra could not have anticipated. Their collaboration was seamless, a blend of instinct, skill, and trust. For the first time since the accident, Ethan felt they were partners, not just roommates sharing a space, but allies capable of facing any challenge together. Late one night, as the station lights dimmed, Ethan sat quietly on his bunk while Lyra prepared her nutrient rations. "You've grown," she said softly, her glowing tendrils shifting gently beneath her robes, not just in skill but in understanding. "You act with consideration even under pressure." Ethan smiled faintly. "I've had a good teacher." Lyra's eyes glimmered faintly. "Perhaps I have also learned to observe differently. Not all humans are reckless. Some can act responsibly, with care and patience." He leaned back, feeling the bond between them strengthen. They had survived a threat that could have ended disastrously, and in doing so, had discovered the value of trust, cooperation, and understanding. The station was quiet, the danger gone, but something had shifted permanently. Ethan and Lyra were no longer strangers or mere roommates, they were allies, linked by shared experience and mutual respect. And though challenges remained, Ethan knew one thing clearly: he would protect Lyra, and she would trust him, for they had proven that together, they could overcome any threat. The station had returned to normal after the incident with the smugglers. The alarms were silenced, the ships were gone, and the corridors buzzed with routine life. But for Ethan and Lyra, the events of the past days had changed everything. For the first time since moving in together, the tension that had always lingered between them felt lighter. The awkward silence had been replaced by quiet understanding. Ethan knew now how delicate Lyra's trust was, and Lyra recognized that not all humans were careless. Yet something remained unspoken. They had faced danger together, worked as a team, and survived. But the deeper bond that began to form had not been fully acknowledged. It was late evening when Ethan found Lyra in the small hydroponics room near their quarters. The plants glowed faintly under artificial lights, and water trickled through the channels with a soothing rhythm. Lyra stood at the edge of a pool, observing the reflections of her own glowing skin on the water. "You seem calm," Ethan said softly as he stepped into the room. Lyra tilted her head, her tendrils shifting gently. "I am calm because the threat is gone." "Yet calm is not trust, human. Trust is earned and proven continuously." Ethan nodded. "I know, I want to keep earning it. I want to be someone you can rely on completely." Her eyes glimmered faintly. "Reliability is one thing. Understanding is another. Humans often fail to understand consequences, even with the best intentions. But you act thoughtfully. You observe, you adjust, you protect. That is rare." He smiled.